In 3049, the clans invaded the Inner Sphere on a crusade to re-establish the Star League. They caught the great houses of the Inner Sphere off guard and crushed their defenses in order to claim vast occupation zones. When Comstar realized that their treasured Terra was the ultimate goal of the invaders, they issued a batchal. They would fight all 7 of the invading clans in a proxy battle for Terra. The planet of Tukayyid in the Free Rashalag Republic was chosen as the battlefield. If the Comguards were victorious, the clan invasion would pause for 15 years, but if the clans won, they would claim Terra as their prize. For the Battle of Tukayyid, each clan was given their own set of objectives that they would be fighting to claim. For Clan Steel Viper, they needed to take and hold Kozich Ranch Station and Kelly Springs. The Khans decided to land their force near the Nestle River Delta, and then advance up the river to take those objectives. As they started their approach, they fought a few small engagements in the Delta, and then the Comguards retreated into an 18-kilometer long region of canyons, geysers, and boiling mud known as the Devil's Bath. The Steel Vipers pursued the Comguards into the Badlands, but quickly lost an entire trinary and began to withdraw in order to seek an alternate route to their objectives. Seeing his defensive plans in danger, Presenter Yekel of the Comguard 6th Division connected his atlas to the world satellite network and began to broadcast.
On Terra, there are 2 kinds of snakes. The kind with fangs and the kind that slink away to hide. I guess in clan space there is only one kind. Slither back to the periphery, Tin Vipers. You'll never see Mother Terra, but don't worry, we Freebursts will keep it safe from any dirty little snakes. Bye now. Have a safe cower home.
Enraged, the Steel Viper warriors charged back into the Devil's Bath. For this battle report, my friend Geoff and I are going to play a battle between the Comguards and Clan Steel Viper in the Devil's Bath. For the Comguards, I'm controlling a level 2 of battle mechs along with some battlefield support in the form of 3 minefields and an artillery strike. That gives me a total of 9,967 BV and 12 battlefield support points. Leading the Comguards is Presenter Yekel in his Atlas AS-7D. It is a rugged 100-ton battle mech, armed with an LRM-20, an autocannon 20, an SRM-6, and 4 medium lasers. A Star Leaguer or King Crab 000 provides close-in firepower with 2 autocannon 20s, an LRM-15, and a large laser. Built to fight the clans, a Black Knight BL-9 KNT brings an ERPPC, an assortment of lasers, and a hatchet that's shaped like a sword into the battle. A Lancelot LNC-2501 is a fast sniper with 6'9 movement profile, a PPC, and 2 large lasers. A Crab CRB-27 is an effective medium mech with a 5'8 movement profile, 2 large lasers, a medium laser, and a small laser. And then filling out the level 2 is a Mongoose 66. It is a fast scout with 3 medium lasers and a small laser. For Clan Steel Viper, Geoff chose a star consisting of 4 Omnimechs and a point of elemental battle armor. His force came in at 12,989 BV. Leading the star is an Executioner Prime, a jump-capable 95-ton assault mech with a Gauss rifle, 2 ER large lasers, and 2 machine guns. A Timberwolf in the S configuration uses its pod space to add jump jets, pulse lasers, and a bunch of short-range missiles. A Viper A is exceptionally mobile with an 8-12-8 movement profile. It carries 5 ER medium lasers and an SRM-6. The star's final mech is a Battle Cobra Prime, a 40-ton Omni-mech with 2 large pulse lasers and 2 small pulse lasers. A point of 5 elementals with flamers then finishes off the star. As the defenders, the Comguards deployed in defensive positions throughout the canyons. They also pre-plotted some artillery targets and deployed their minefields. As the battle starts, both the Mongoose and the Lancelot stand still in their starting positions. Then the Battle Cobra runs onto the board and towards the upper entrance to the canyons. Both the Crab and the Atlas hold their positions. The Executioner runs forward to the edge of one of the mud pits. The King Crab stands ready. The Timberwolf jumps onto the board and over a small mud pit. The Black Knight runs forward to the entrance of the canyon in order to confront the Battle Cobra. And then the Viper, carrying a point of elementals, jumps and uses a geyser as a safe landing spot within a lake of mud. The Black Knight opens fire on the Battle Cobra and hits with both of its large lasers and 2 of its medium pulse lasers. The Battle Cobra retaliates, melting armor from the Black Knight's torso with both of its large pulse lasers. Not expecting that amount of damage, the Comguard's mech warrior loses control and stumbles to the ground. The King Crab blasts away armor from the Timberwolf's leg and torso with its autocannon 20s. The Timberwolf fires back and hits with 2 of its pulse lasers and a flight of SRMs. The Executioner fires its jump jets to bypass the boiling mud. It lands in the middle of a minefield, taking damage to both legs, but it manages to stay on its feet. The king crab backs away from the executioner. And then the crab walks forward to support its larger kin. The Timberwolf runs forward through a canyon, crossing a minefield but managing not to detonate any of the explosives. Then the Atlas runs forward to get a clear line of sight to the Timberwolf, and the Mongoose races through the canyons in order to take up a firing position behind its larger ally. The Viper jumps above the canyon walls to come down on the rocks behind the king crab, and then its point of elementals dismounts. The Lancelot backs up to get the Viper outside of its PPC's minimum range. Then the Battle Cobra backs away from the Black Knight and starts to take the same path the Executioner followed. Finally, the Black Knight pushes itself onto its feet and then runs back through the canyon towards its allies. The Battle Cobra fires its large pulse lasers across a mud pit and melts more than a ton of the Mongoose's armor. The Mongoose returns fire with its lasers, but it misses with all three. The Executioner hits the king crab with its Gauss rifle and both ER large lasers. The king crab misses the Executioner with both of its big autocannons. The Timberwolf opens fire on the Atlas and hits with almost everything to blast away armor and spike its heat levels. Press Enter Jekyll returns fire but only manages to hit with a single medium laser. The crab fires up at the Viper and misses with all three of its lasers. The Viper fires back with 3 lasers and melts armor from each of the crab's arms. Then, from the Viper's other side, the Lancelot fires and hits the Omnimech with both of its large lasers. The Viper jumps down to the canyon floor and blocks the path of retreat for the crabs. The crab walks backwards, but puts itself on the far side of the mud pool from the Viper. Then the Black Knight continues to run back towards the other comm guards. The Timberwolf uses its jump jets to take up a good firing position on the rocks between the Atlas and the king crab. With good line of sight to the Timberwolf's landing spot, the Lancelot stands still. The Battle Cobra attempts to cross the mud pit in front of it, but slips and falls as soon as it enters the pool of corrosive gunk. The mech warrior is injured in the fall, and then the boiling sludge begins to eat away at the Battle Cobra's armor. The Atlas walks forward just enough to break the Timberwolf's line of sight. Then the Executioner fires its jump jets to close the distance with the king crab. Then the Mongoose races through the canyons in order to get a shot on the Executioner. The Elementals jump down near the crab, and then the king crab backs up to nestle against the canyon wall out of sight of the Timberwolf above. After racing through the canyons, the Mongoose fires its 3 medium lasers at the Executioner and misses. Ignoring the light mech, the Executioner fires everything it has at the king crab, hitting with a Gauss rifle and one of its ER large lasers. The king crab retaliates with its 2 heavy autocannons, blasting armor from the Executioner's left arm and knocking it to the ground. The Elementals attack the king crab from the other side, hitting it with several missiles, but the assault mech manages to stay on its feet. The crab fires 3 lasers down at the Elementals, but only manages to hit 1. From across the mud pool, the Viper hits the crab with one of its lasers. Back on the other side of the battle, the Black Knight misses the Timberwolf with its PPC and one of its lasers. The Timberwolf returns fire and melts armor from the Black Knight's torso with its lasers. Then from the far side of the battlefield, the Lancelot hits the Timberwolf with a PPC and a large laser. Then the crab rushes forward at the Elementals, and all but smashes one with its foot. Hoping to continue pulling the Clan Steel Viper warriors forward, the comm guards also called in their artillery strike just in front of the king crab's position. From laying in the mud, the Battle Cobra sees armor melted away across its entire body by the corrosive substances. Its struggling mech warrior manages to push the machine back to its feet but fails to escape the mud. The Mongoose runs back through the canyons in order to harass the Battle Cobra. And the Black Knight walks forward to join it. The Executioner suffers a mask malfunction that damages the jump jets in its legs, but it still manages to push itself to its feet and move forward towards the Lancelot. The crab runs across a geyser field and towards the Viper's position. Then the Viper uses its speed advantage to back away from the crab. The Lancelot turns and runs away from the Executioner in order to round a corner and get a clean line of sight at the Viper. Expecting the king crab to go after the Executioner, the Elementals jump to its side, but the assault mech surprises them and backs away instead. The Timberwolf jumps across the canyon in order to look down on the Black Knight from another rock formation. Then the Atlas walks backwards in order to get a line of sight on the Timberwolf's new position. The mongoose fires at the bogged-down battlecobra and melts away some of its torso armor with 2 of its lasers. Desperate for glory, the battlecobra twists towards the Black Knight, fires, and hits with everything. The Black Knight decides to focus on the Timberwolf that appeared above it rather than the battlecobra. It only hits with 2 of its pulse lasers, though. The Timberwolf savages the Black Knight from above, hitting with all of its weapons and damaging the engine and gyro. The Black Knight's mech warrior loses control and the Clanbuster falls to the ground. The Atlas attempts to help the Black Knight against the Timberwolf, but only manages to hit with 1 of its medium lasers. On the other side of the battlefield, the Viper fires all of its lasers at the crab and melts away nearly 2 tons of armor. The crab retaliates by burning a hole into the Viper's left torso with its 2 large lasers. From the Viper's other side, the Lancelot hits it with another large laser. The combined damage is enough to topple the Omnimech. The Elementals fire on the King Crab again, peppering it with a half-dozen SRMs. The Assault Mech fires back with a single large laser that the Elementals easily avoid. Then the Long Tom strike rains down, annihilating the Elementals and doing some light damage to the Executioner's arm. Suffering from crippling heat levels, the Battlecobra shuts down. Its mech warrior is unable to keep the machine on its feet and it falls back into the boiling mud. When it hits, the mech warrior blacks out. The Black Knight carefully pushes itself back onto its feet. Then the Lancelot walks up to just across the mud pool from the fallen Viper. Stuck in the mud, the Battlecobra takes more damage from corrosion. The crab runs up to the fallen Viper. Trying to avoid being a stationary target, the mongoose runs a circle around a rock formation back to where it can see the Battlecobra. The Viper gets back to its feet and then runs away from the Lancelot and the crab in order to hide deeper in the canyons. The King Crab holds its position. Then the Executioner runs in order to get a shot at the back of the Lancelot. Presenter Jekyll runs his Atlas back towards the main fighting. And then the Timberwolf jumps back to the rock formation between the Atlas and the King Crab. The mongoose hits the disabled Battlecobra with 2 of its lasers. Then the Black Knight finishes it off with its pulse lasers. The King Crab hits the Timberwolf with 1 of its big autocannons and damages its engine. The Steel Viper returns fire, taking out 1 of the King Crab's autocannons with a laser, but missing with all of its SRMs. Then the Atlas hits the Timberwolf with a few SRMs. With the Viper in hiding, the Lancelot flips its arms and fires at the Executioner behind it. 1 of the large lasers melts armor from the Executioner's leg. Undeterred, the Executioner takes aim at the Lancelot's back, hitting it with a Gauss rifle and a large laser. The Lancelot loses 1 of its large lasers to the damage. Slowed by heat and its damaged gyroscope, the Black Knight begins to walk towards the remaining fighting. Then the King Crab backs up to take shelter between the rocky cliffs and an erupting geyser. The Timberwolf fires its jump jets and comes down on the canyon floor right in front of the King Crab. The Atlas runs through the canyons trying to get back in position to help the other comm guards. Even farther from the remaining fighting, the mongoose does the same. Seeing the Atlas's approach, the Executioner decides to stay focused on the Lancelot for now and runs towards it. The crab backs up just enough to have line of sight to the Executioner. The Lancelot's mech warrior debates trying to flee across the mud, but in the end decides to just turn around and face the assault mech bearing down on it. Then the Viper emerges from hiding and races to get a shot at the back of the Lancelot. The Lancelot hits the Executioner with all 3 of its remaining weapons, blasting into the internals of the left arm. Then the Viper's lasers chew their way into the back of the Lancelot's torso and destroy its engine. Confident in the Viper's ability to deal with the Lancelot, the Executioner turns and fires past them, hitting the crab with a Gauss rifle and 2 large lasers. Rocked by that unexpected damage, the crab misses the Timberwolf. The King Crab's autocannon shot goes wide, but it melts armor from the Timberwolf's leg with its large laser. The Timberwolf unleashes an Alpha Strike on the King Crab, hitting with almost everything. Ammo explosions in the left torso knock out the mech warrior, who then dies from a final injury as the massive assault mech crashes into the ground. With the Lancelot out of the fight, the Executioner backs up to confront the Atlas. The Black Knight continues its slow walk to rejoin the fighting, and then the Atlas runs towards the Executioner to close the range. The Viper jumps back up onto the canyon walls to get a potential shot at the back of the Atlas. The Crab runs around a lake of boiling mud in order to start converging on the Atlas's position. The Timberwolf gets into position to block the Crab's route. And then the Mongoose runs into position to fire at the Timberwolf. The Mongoose only manages to hit the clan mech with a single medium laser. The Timberwolf opens up on the Crab with its lasers melting away armor and then its SRMs exploiting those openings. The Crab suffers a head hit and then falls due to gyro damage. The Crab's return fire burns into the Timberwolf's internals and actuator damage causes it to fall too. The Viper fires its lasers down at the Mongoose and destroys its left side. Press Enter Jekyll's Atlas hits the Executioner with everything he fires. The Executioner hits back with everything and blasts away armor from the Atlas. Despite its heat level spiking due to engine damage, the Crab manages to avoid shutting down. Wanting to stay out of arm's reach, the Executioner runs down a canyon before turning just enough to be able to fire back behind it. The Black Knight continues its slow walk through the canyons, and the Atlas runs after the Executioner. Then the Viper jumped down behind the Atlas, and the Mongoose ran through the canyons to help the Atlas with the Viper. The Timberwolf pushed itself to its feet and then ran to get into position to intercept the Black Knight. And then, determined to keep fighting, the crippled Crab got back to its feet. The Mongoose misses all three of its shots at the Viper. The Viper's lasers melt armor from the back and leg of the Atlas. The Atlas retaliates with its rear-facing lasers and destroys the Viper's left side. Then it fires at the Executioner in front of it. The big autocannon misses, but lasers and missiles continue to chip away at the Omnimech's armor. The Executioner hits back with most of its weapons blasting away armor and knocking the Atlas off its feet. Still dangerously overheated, the Crab shuts down. Its mech warrior realizes their mistake in standing up when they hit the ground and black out. Press Enter Jekyll gets his Atlas back to its feet and then pushes towards the Executioner. The Executioner backs away to the edge of the mud pool. The Mongoose circles through the canyon to try to stay evasive. The Viper pursues the Atlas. The Black Knight continues its slow walk back towards the fighting. And then the Timberwolf ignores it in order to hurry into the canyon near the Mongoose. The Mongoose hits the Timberwolf with a laser. The Timberwolf's return fire completely destroys the light mech. The Viper fires a single medium laser into the back of the Atlas. Rather than using his rear-facing lasers, Press Enter Jekyll turns his Atlas's torso and lines up a punch towards the Viper. Then he hits the Executioner with the rest of his weapons. The Executioner's return fire breaks through the Atlas's armor and ignites a devastating ammunition explosion that takes down the assault mech. With Press Enter Jekyll defeated and every remaining mech crippled by damage, the Steel Vipers withdrew from this engagement. In the brutal fighting of the Devil's Bath, the Steel Vipers would eventually completely destroy the 6th Division and emerge from the far side of the Badlands. Once there, however, supply problems and Comguard reinforcements led to Khan Breen deciding to abandon the battle and withdraw from Tukayyid. Across the entire Battle of Tukayyid, the clan struggled against the Comguards and Comstar was able to claim victory. This victory should have brought 15 years of peace, but instead it planted the seeds for fresh conflicts. Comstar's internal divisions led to it tearing itself apart when it should have been hailed as the saviors of the Inner Sphere. With the threat of invasion lessened, old conflicts between the great houses reawakened despite efforts at unity. A new Star League was formed to counter the clans, but it lasted less than a decade. And amongst the clans, warriors needed to contend with a denied destiny, and they began to turn on one another, with first the Refusal War and then the Wars of Reaving. Eventually, though, nearly a century after the Battle of Tukayyid, clans Wolf and Jade Falcon would finally conquer Terra and fulfill Kerensky's vision. An ill clan was born. This Battle Reports game was based on the Desgro demolition scenario from the fantastic Battle of Tukayyid sourcebook. If you don't already have a copy, I strongly recommend picking one up. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more from me, you can subscribe here on YouTube at scottsgameroom.com or on Patreon.